The program is Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service. As a prompt for our conversation this morning, let's take this special report put together by Kunle Adeye.
As the third tier of government, the local government has almost the same structure with other tiers of governments, that is, the executive, the legislative arms, except the judicial arm. Based on the provisions of the Constitution, leadership of local government administration should emerge through the ballot. Within the past decade, leadership of local governments in Nigeria has been a blend of elected and appointed officials. With the power conferred on state governments to conduct elections through their state electoral umpires, one therefore expects that these elections will not be interrupted. Latest research has, however, shown that 10 states are yet to conduct local government elections, leaving the affairs of the council areas in the hands of caretaker committees or civil servants who are not backed by the Constitution to operate in such capacity. Some legal practitioners at different fora have maintained that any leadership short of elected officials in local government is an aberration. Does this amount to depriving people at the grassroots of their constitutional right of electing their leaders at this level of governance? Are there legal or security implications in local councils without elected officials? Answers to these and many more with guests on Good Morning Nigeria in a moment.
All right, thank you very much, Kunle Adeye, for the backgrounder. Now, to discuss this issue, we would like to welcome regular guests on Good Morning Nigeria. First, a former Deputy Governor of Abia State, His Excellency Dr. Chris Akubas. Your Excellency, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's nice to be here again. Thank you.
Also here with us in the studios, we would like to specially welcome again the former Secretary General of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mazi Afam Osigwe, and the special welcome, of course, for him is to congratulate him formally on Good Morning Nigeria on his attainment of the rank of the Learned Senior Advocate of Nigeria. SAN, Afam Osigwe, pleasure to have you with us this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here, sir.
Also here with us in the studios, we would like to welcome the former chairman of Kiana Local Government Area in Nasarawa State, another regular on Good Morning Nigeria, Honorable Jibril Sabo Kiana. Honorable Kiana, delighted to have you this morning.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay.
And from Kaduna studio, we have the former Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, Kaduna State, and Professor of Political Science. We're talking about Professor Kabiru Matu. Prof, it's good to have you this morning on our show.
Kingsley, Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, and of course, also in Kaduna is a member of the Kaduna State House of Assembly representing Zaria constituency, Chairman Committee on Education and also Member Committee on Local Government, Suleiman Ibrahim Dabo. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning to you all.
So that our audio will be through to Kaduna.
Yes,
so I
just hope, as I said, we were able to clear that up from the engineers in charge of the audio from our Kaduna Network Center. So, gentlemen, once again, I'm delighted to have you all with us on the program today. A sore point in Nigeria's constitutional democracy in the Fourth Republic since 1999 has been what some experts have referred to as the flagrant disregard of the express provisions of Section 7 of the 1999 Constitution as amended subsequently. And that section says that democratically elected local governments are hereby guaranteed by the Constitution. Well, the experience has been that you only have local governments democratically elected in a few places at any point in time. And mostly, you have caretaker committees that are in place, or you have the so-called head of, sorry, not so-called now, the head of admin, that's personnel in the local government area, taking charge, thereby rendering that tier of government, which ordinarily is very significant in our administrative setup almost inoperable and therefore not being part of the governance structure. Our focus is on local government elections, but we know that elections are to an end to elect officials who will then govern. Dr. Chris Akumas, let's begin this conversation with you. Why are we in this state with regard to our local governments that are struggling to be democratic?
Thank you, Kingsley. And let me join the Good Morning Nigeria team of NTA to congratulate my brother on the attainment of the rank of SAN. It's very pathetic. It's very disheartening. But then I think the Constitution intended and trusted that the subnational that will superintend over the State Independent Electoral Commission will do their own part effectively. I say this pathetic because whether you call it transition committee, call it caretaker committee, sole administratorship as the case is sometimes, it is all temporary and in some cases not even longer than 3 months. In some states, depending on the laws made by the State House of Assembly, which is their right, the transition committees or caretaker committees are expected to elapse after 3 months, some 6 months, some 1 year. And somebody who is appointed for a 3-month job will focus more on what happens after 3 months. And those that appoint them make it so difficult for them to think of anything other than that appointment. That's one. Secondly, at the national level, with the INEC, we have non-election cycle. We know that every 4 years, there's going to be a general elections. And so, both those that are aspiring to contest for elective offices and the umpire, that is INEC, and the government works towards that. The off-season elections, by-elections, are things that come and is known. Again, conducting elections are very expensive. It's an expensive thing to do. Just as running for elections, elective offices are also expensive. But the good thing is, when you have and know the election cycle, you budget and plan towards it. But at the state level, there was this talk this morning, you talked about minimum wage and all that. That's something for another day, because we are talking of minimum, not maximum. Okay, so there must be a way of protecting those two at that level. Most states are struggling to pay salaries. And I've always said the difficulty in paying salaries is because of wrong prioritization. A workman is worthy of his wages. So if the states are struggling to pay salaries, which is one of the cardinal things to do, how then would they actually work towards providing the resources, the funding, the enablement for proper elections? So, as it is, we have not institutionalized the electoral process at that level. It is an ad hoc arrangement, as it is, that's what happens across the country. A chief executive looks at situations, feels I need an elective, team to help handle some political distance because the law protects them better. He puts that together. And yet, we have had the situations, I'm happy that the senior advocate is here, where governors come in and dissolve elected, council officials, chairmen and councillors and all that. So the problem is that we are still doing the ad hoc thing. And that is happening because we are yet to perfect a system of sanction that will force the subnationals responsible for this to do the right thing. That's one. Two, we are yet to ensure that the consequence for not doing that which is prescribed by the Constitution is punchy. Because that is what will force us at that level to do what is right. Yes. Otherwise, a state government, a state governor, who can run his state appointing the transition committee chairman, sole administrators, caretaker committees from time to time, and the House continues to. So we just have to find a way of institutionalizing the electoral process at that level so that there will be clear election cycle. Even the states now that we conduct the elections of this season, like Anambra, Kogi, and that, we know when.
Now, yes, let's just pause you there. You've made a very interesting point there. And we'd like to bring in a man who has been in the saddle, former local government chairman, and of course, former chairman of Association of Local Governments in Nigeria, Jubril Sabo Keyena. You've listened to Chris Akomas, who has also been a deputy governor in Abia State. Now, where is the problem? We know what the law says, and we know that all state governments have a state electoral commission. Yet, they find it so difficult to conduct elections. Kingsley, when he was, opening up, this conversation with his question, read out what the law said about it. And again, why is it that since 1999, it's been so difficult for government at subnational level to organize elections into council areas? Some of them give reasons as to say funds to conduct the elections, but some also conduct the elections. So what is the problem?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity and to congratulate our co-panelist on his attainment of SAN, status that conveys on him almost a moral obligation to convey, to discharge his obligations in a manner that gives Nigeria opportunity, the poor ones, to be heard. But I also want to congratulate NTA again and again because you have been consistent on this program to redefine what is supposed to be a local government system in this country. And for me to make any input, I would even rather start with an appeal or a rider from the point of view that I hope when we are discussing local government system in this country, I hope everybody feels the pinch that the system has collapsed. That is the absence of the local government system functioning that we're discussing federalism. It is the absence of a functioning local government system that we're discussing restructuring. It is the absence of the functioning local government system that today we have insecurity problem, we have hunger across this country. For me, this discussion is no longer about the provisions and content of the Constitution. It is about the populace, the elitists, we who have also benefited and those who are suffering, to rise up to the responsibility of staying by one truth about what must be done and what should be done. We cannot afford the luxury that the American system has demonstrated to us that they can recover after such a massive surge of half-truths and special truths. The Nigerian situation has been very clear. Even if you allow Section 7 to subsist, there is a moral burden. And you can ask all the previous governors, they now know that there's enough check and balance in Section 7 of the Constitution of this country to give the executive in a state to discharge his responsibility according to the oath of office he has sworn to. So this is where we should be focusing. Why is it that every governor, the day he steps into the office, believes that the state belongs to him, and it is how he breathes or eats that the state must shiver to it? And that's where it is. There is nothing else that is stopping people from conducting the affairs of the local government according to the rules and regulations on the ground. But maybe, if the Constitution has not created this lacuna, where it subjected the administrative and operational status of the local government system to the dictum and dictates of how a state House of Assembly will pass laws for its existence, we would not be in this mess. And it is because we have continued to be copycats. The federalism we continue to shout today across the country evolved in their own mode and atmosphere and climate. The federalism and democracy is developing in a manner that we are copycatting. We should have been looking inwards. What are the cherished values that the Nigerian society today owns, original to itself, that is not resident in any part of this country, that everybody cherishes and encourages its existence? This same landmass we have today that we have a security problem, this same landmass today that we have no development, no control in any form, the education, the primary schools are collapsed, the secondary schools are collapsed, existed. And the native authorities govern this country perfectly. So it is for us to introspect that the truth is that we have allowed the leadership for too long to operate as if they were gods until their tenure expired. Otherwise, the checks and balances in the Constitution today gives us room for this thing to have come to be a story of the past. And so the only way out is that since we are copycatting, we should do a surgery now and bring about a tenured existence at the local government council, where elections shall be conducted. Because for every 4 years, there shall be election for the presidency. There shall be elections for the governors. There shall be elections for the state and federal houses of assemblies. And therefore, if we must start afresh for this country, we must all encourage the amendment of the Constitution, the Nigerian Constitution, to include tenure like it has for the FCT. The FCT has no problem because every 3 years there is always an election conducted by the INEC. And the idea that the INEC, the states have right to exist as a federal system. Let us look at how our federal system or our federal levels have come to existence. They came to existence by fiats. So we must give the rules and regulations that will structure somebody who has been given a gift. Trading places is a living example of where Nigeria is coming from today. We don't own what we think we have because it has not been part of us, and we continue to make references to existence of people or histories that are over 200 years. So my opinion is very clear that the National Assembly is now properly equipped in every form of it. There's enough uniformity in the two houses of assembly and in the executive arm of government. It remains us, the populace, to move consciously through the media houses in any form to ensure that the amendment that is needed, first and foremost, is to give every community its right to exist as an autonomous unit of government in this country. Once we have that, every other issue that has been clouded development in this country, be clouded insecurity in this country, will become to have a systematic approach to its elimination and maybe correction in the course of our management of our own affairs.
Honorable Kiara, thank you very much there for your opening statements. Let's bring in Mazi Afam Osigwe. Mazi Afam, well, the matter is constitutional, it's legal, it's also political. But why are we the way we are? It's apparent flagrant disregard for the express provisions that we find both in law and in the Constitution.
I'll sum it up to say that while we're in this situation where, with respect to local governments, is simple: avarice, greed, corruption, power grab. So for governors, the local government system is to feed their political ambitions. So they want to put their cronies in charge of the local. They don't want the local government system to work. The local government is supposed to get 21% of allocation from the federal government. So what have the governors done? They have also ensured that this money does not get to the local government, because the constitution requires that money accruing to local governments from the federation account, from the state, goes into, that's section 162, into the joint account for local governments. So it becomes a slush fund for state governors to steal money. Let's call a spade a spade. And that's why they don't want it to work. And they handpick their persons and put them there and get them to sign all manner of documents to explain that these monies have been spent, that they are doing joint development work projects in these local governments, and nothing ever gets done. And nobody audits this account until we treat it for what it is, as a coup. Because people think that a coup only happens when people take over government by force of arms. It happens when people take over government by a mode other than that recognized by law. If the constitution has guaranteed a democratically elected system of government and the local governments, and the governors, despite various decisions by even the apex court, outlawing appointment of caretakers, and they continue, if we don't impose sanctions on them by finding a legally justifiable way of denying them access to funds, except there be elected council in place, we are wasting our time. Until we make it difficult for the governors to undemocratically access these funds, the elections will never take place. They ensure that the local governments don't work. They handpick people there. They put those who campaign for them. And they don't care about the quality of people who get there. They want people that will say sign, they sign. And that is why it should worry all of us that the National Financial Intelligence Unit brought in guidelines about how monies meant for local government should be withdrawn, that not more than, I think, 500,000 should be withdrawn in cash. And horrifyingly, all the state governors banded together to oppose it. It should tell us something, because of the financial interest. Because they can no longer go to the account and withdraw hundreds of millions in cash that will never be accounted for. And it's a shame and a blight on our democratic system. Nobody, and that's why I feel a sense of shame when I see governors being congratulated for conducting an election. What's that? For what? Yet, these are states that have what they call independent state electoral committee. And the governor is being congratulated, telling you that the so-called state independent electoral committee is nothing but, they are mere appendages of the state governor. If the governor says take a backflip, they take a backflip. Say lie down and pretend to be dead, they are dead. So they have no power. This is the governors that determine what happens. They teleguide them. So this argument, nonsensical as it may seem, that they don't have money to conduct them. Yeah, these governors have so much money to give under security vote. And yet we are deceiving ourselves. And the system of local government that is intended to bring democracy down to the grassroots is not being addressed. The community policing, some of the things that the local government system should drive, is not being driven. Because the governor merely makes sure that salaries are paid, and they give them a little thing for the chairman to feel like a chairman, and the rest goes away, and nothing happens. And in some states, they say, oh, that the communities should choose projects they want to, and the governor is giving it to them as if he is writing a personal check from his account. And he's being thanked as if he's the next best thing after sliced bread. And we are where we are. How can we say we cannot pay salary? Because the governors in some states appoint hundreds of persons they call special advisors, who are actually continual campaigners for them, who do nothing. They are called special advisors. They receive a lump sum from the state governors every month for doing nothing. And some of this funding comes from money meant for the development of local governments. Federal state government is supposed to get, I think, 27%, local government 21%. Effectively, the state governors control this 48%, if I'm not mistaken, coming to the two tiers of government. And they make this argument that the local government is not a federating unit. We're not saying it's a federating unit, but it's a tier of government recognized by the Constitution. I am glad Honorable Ken has suggested that the Constitution should make it to have a tenure. The tenure of local government should be inserted in the Constitution. But you will never see the light of the day, because the governors who also hold the key to the various state houses of assembly will not allow them to approve it. Is it not in this country that state houses of assembly refused financial autonomy for themselves? Because if you vote for it, the governor will have you removed. You see, we are making a mess of our democracy, and that's why there's worsening welfare situations, insecurity, because a few persons continue to line their pockets and they don't care about what happens. And they remind me of Louis XIV, who says, "Après-moi deluge," after me the storm. They don't care what happens after them. They destroy the whole institution. And then you steal all this money. And even you cannot go to your village without a retinue of armed security guards, a long convoy of vehicles, over roads that are not good. And it doesn't worry us. Until we allow democracy to work in the form it should work in. We shouldn't be having this conversation, for goodness sake. Because it's an issue of law. And we are shamelessly violating the law. And we are begging the governors to do the right thing as if they know the right thing. But they don't want, because they want, that's why I said it's avarice, greed. They want to have access, unfettered access to funds that will never, never, ever be accounted for. And there's nothing to show for it. And a few years down the line, some of them start selling their property. So where are we? We've achieved nothing. But I'm glad NTA is drawing attention to it, because it's a terrible thing. And if we don't address it, I fear for our people.
Thank you, Mazi Afam Osigwe San. Maybe I'm one of those. I'm the only person that didn't congratulate you for attaining that position.
Yes,
But what you have elicited this morning actually is an indication that, of course, you are really a son, and that you have this subject matter, have full knowledge of this subject matter. And at this point, let's go to Professor Kabiru Matu. Kabiru Matu, you are a political scientist, in fact, a professor of political science. I've also been the chairman, the commissioner for local government and chieftaincy matters. So I also believe that you have an implicit knowledge and understanding of this topic this morning. Now, what do you think is the major problem? We are saying that this is a constitutional matter, it's a political matter, and it's also a matter of law. So how come at the subnational level that some persons, perhaps the governors, do not obey this law, do not obey what is the Constitution? Because the Constitution is a superior document that we work on. So why has it been so difficult for governors in Nigeria to adhere to the Constitution and ensure that council elections are conducted and people duly elected, allowed to also have access to funds to run council areas?
Thank you very much, Kirian, and good morning, colleagues there in the studios and here in Kaduna. I think we were, anytime we begin to talk about the crisis in the Nigerian local government system, we try to reduce it to either the issue of constitution or the issue of politics. Yes, as real as these two fundamental problems may be, there is a third, leg of the tripod, which is the structural nature of the local government system itself in Nigeria, which seems to me, creates more problems than both the political and the constitutional dimension that we are, we've been talking about. Now, what do I mean? You see, Nigeria is a federal state, and I also share the belief that the local government system is not necessarily a tier of government, but it's a tier of government, but not a unit of federation as far as the Nigerian system is concerned. We try at all times to approbate and reprobate at the same time. That is to say, we try to situate those things that we feel gladden our hearts or are comfortable with us, and then try to blacklist all those other items, as fundamental as they may be, that we don't seem to have very close to our hearts. And I think this is the major problem. Why should we as a nation continue to insist on a uniform structure of local government system? This is not, for instance, what we inherited from British colonial administration. Yes, we have 2 or 3-tier federal system of government. We have 3 units of representation, therefore, in this case. In the First Republic, it was basically 2, and then each of the regions, 3 of them, and then later 4, were given the powers to create local government administrations that were suitable to their individual peculiarities. And here we are as a nation of 36 states of over 200 million people now, insisting that the local government system in Jigawa State must be the same way and manner the local government system somewhere in Anambra or in Rivers State, is. This creates a lot of problems rather than solving the solution. And I think one of the things that needs to be done very seriously here is to look at the character and nature of especially those political administrators that you call governors in certain states of the Federation that have resisted since coming to power of conducting local government elections. In my view, in most of these states, you will find that there are certain basic, societal peculiarities and characteristics perhaps that scares these governors from doing that. It is, in my view, not healthy for anybody to sit and begin to generalize. And I'm surprised that a senior advocate of Nigeria will sit down and accuse the 36 state governors in Nigeria of, meddling, stealing local government funds. I ran local government, ministry in Kaduna State for a period of 2 years. And I know even before I became commissioner for local government early in 2018, the state governor never had a hand in whatever allocation that was going to any local government council. So if you sit there and you begin to say all the governors are guilty of that, in my view, it's really unfortunate. So I am saying that the major issues, yes, you have many states in this country where the governors, are not comfortable with doing elections, and the Constitution itself does not completely or in very strong terms insist that local government administration must be run on the basis of democratic. It simply guarantees. I've been part of the Constitution Review of the National Assembly since 2003, and I know that at least the last assembly tried as much as possible to make this particular provision of the Constitution justiciable by ensuring that certain amendments are carried out to make sure that every state conducts local government elections and that no local government council in this country is run on the basis of, these part-time measures as, several states do. But you see, again, if you look at it, you realize that there is a fundamental blunder and confusion that is, trailing this particular form of argument. In one breath, you say you want financial autonomy for local government. In the other breath, you said you want, the Independent National Electoral Commission to take over the responsibilities of conducting elections at state levels. So what we are doing is we try to approbate and reprobate depending on the circumstances and, our individual and collective preferences. And I think this will not in any way result in addressing the fundamental gap as far as local administration is concerned, which has created tremendous spaces that are governed in this country. How did the native authority system, for instance, succeed in northern Nigeria during colonial period and the First Republic? I think we must wear our thinking caps at all times to be able to understand the reality of situation and begin to address these peculiarities on the basis of, it is true that we are a federal system, and if you are a federal system, it therefore means that there are certain differences and peculiarities in terms of your cultural characteristics at various levels of administration. And I think we must look at the local government system in this country holistically from the point of view of unearthing what really is a local government system that suits some parts of Kaduna State may not be suitable in some parts of Lagos State. Okay? And that's why I keep saying that one of the good things that I appreciate about the, Goodluck Jonathan National Conference was the decision of that conference to come up with a recommendation that the local government tier should be removed as part of the Nigerian constitution and instead allow states to create their own constitutions so that they will be able to identify and come up with suitable local government systems that define their character and characteristics. So you want to be a federalist in one breath, and in some other breath, you want to be a unitarist. This is one of the issues I think that we are facing, and that is really contributing very seriously in our inability,
Professor Kabir Mato, thanks a lot for your opening comments. Of course, we're going to return to you, but there's also seated beside you there Honorable Suleiman Ibrahim Dabo, who is a member of the Kaduna State House of Assembly, and it's a member of the House Committee on Local Governments. We would also like to hear his views on why there appears to be stasis in the local government administration, just by way of elections in the first instance.
Let me also join the queue by congratulating Mazi for his new position of the Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Congratulations, my brother. Having said that, it's important that we understand that all these issues we are discussing are bordering on national question. The issue of local government administration in Nigeria has been over-debated. If we look at it, we always call Nigeria a federating system. But in reality, if you look at it, let me be more academic a bit. Scholars who have done a lot of research, people like Daniel Elazar, who did a lot of research on federalism, is of the view that you have to have two orders of government, not two levels. When you say two orders of government, you are talking about two autonomous federating units. Now, in our own local context, or rather in our own context, in Nigerian context, you have a situation where you have 3 tiers of government. And these 3 tiers of government are 3 levels of government, because the federal government, the states and local governments are all dependent or depending on the center. Now, the issue of subserviency is there. Local governments are being controlled by state governors. But let me just share a bit what my prof just said regarding Kaduna State. I think my amiable governor has tried to do something very unique. When he came in 2015, he formed a committee to look at the local government structure in Kaduna State. And he brought in people from diverse backgrounds, including from the academia, I remembered people coming in from the Department of Local Government and Development Studies in Congo, ABU's area. And they had to take a very long period of time, over a year, discussing with policy makers and other members of the committee on how to come up with a very robust and effective way of running the local government administration in Nigeria. And I think the rationale behind that is to send a message to the larger society, to the larger Nigerian society, that it is still possible to run a local government based on our local realities in our own respective states, just like what Prof said. And let me tell you, today we have a local government system of administration whereby we replicated the presidential system of government. But of course, there are some conflict in terms of the legal operation and framework. We have the local government chairman, who is presiding over as the chief executive, elected local government chairman. We also have the local government legislative council with their speaker and their clerk, majority leader, just the way the state and national assemblies are structured. And now, just like what the former commissioner said, the local government systems in Kaduna State, local government chairman, local government councils are receiving their allocations without the governor touching a penny from that. And you can just go and inspect some of these local governments in Kaduna State and see the unprecedented development projects, the physical infrastructure. I can give you a few examples. Go to places like Sabongari, local government, go to places like Soba local government and see what these local governments have been able to do. So I also share the opinion with Prof that it is important that local government administration should be allowed to operate based on our own peculiarities. Having said that, the most important thing is about the issue of the legal operational framework in the Constitution. That is in Nigeria, that is the Constitution of Nigeria, because you have to have a political, or rather a democratic barometer in measuring what have you put on ground, whether that thing that you've put on ground is really realistic, is working, is effective, is efficient, or otherwise. Now, if we can come and look at the Constitution holistically and specifically in that area of local government administration and say, okay, now let's structure the local government in such a way that it will be based on the realities of our different contexts. I think this is my position on the issue. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Just as we are just discussing here while you were on, actually we're not focusing on Kaduna as a state, but we understand that your governor may have a different view from other governors. If that is happening in Kaduna, that is beautiful, right? But our concern is that a majority of states in Nigeria do not conduct council elections. What they do is to appoint persons who are surrogates to the governors to head the council areas, and by so doing, we're not getting results from that tier of government that should be closer to the majority of Nigerians in this country. And I'd like to bring in a former deputy governor, Akomas, here once more. You listen to Professor Maltu, and of course a member of the House of Assembly in Kaduna, and they raised a number of issues concerning restructuring of council areas. They're saying that we should revisit the Constitution as to determine what constitutes a council area and how it should be governed. What their views, did it make sense to you with respect to what we have now today in Nigeria, where we are crying that council areas are dysfunctional and that it's being manipulated by governors, making it difficult for Nigerians to really feel the impact of what democracy at the local level should be?
Thank you, Kirian. I want us to get few things clear. We are talking of not having proper elections conducted at the local government level. 2, what are the effects of this situation on the administration of those areas? And following that, how have we fared with all these vacuums and lack of strength at that level? We are not talking of any particular state. I know that my state governor conducted the local government elections in December, and they've sworn in for the 2 times he has been there. He has conducted 2 local government elections. When I spoke about funding and electoral cycle for the local government areas, I'm happy Honorable Kena, alluded to that. I was talking of this issue of tenure. I didn't use the word tenure because we know that local government elected officials, when I say officials, I'm talking of the chairman, deputy chairman, councillors, and all that. I expect when they are elected is for 3 years. Now, what gave rise to the decision for them to be there for 3 years instead of 4 years? Why? What is the wisdom in that? Because somebody will have to superintend over that election. And that person comes in, he has 4 years to be in office. So there is still a gap that we must take care of. Somebody comes in, spends almost a year before he conducts election for the local government. My learned brother, the state independent, mark the word, state independent electoral commissions are commissions and creations of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended. Is there, is institutionalized. But I'm saying the operations and the electoral process is what we have to work on. And then there must be consequence and sanctions for people not following through. And that's another thing to work on. Talking about what works for air, and if elections are conducted by the state independent electoral commissions for the local governments in the area, the people know the needs and wants of their people. They will be forced to work. You are talking of people who do not actually campaign. Whether appointed or elected, the governor and government at the state level must have a level of influence. That is given. But when people campaign, run through elections, go to the people and seek their vote, people can hold them to what they promised. Now, you don't generalize, but we have a problem that majority are not attending to, and that is this issue of elections. And that's why we talk about it like this. It's not as if there are no states that are doing well in the way they are administering their systems. But majority have failed. And talking of funding, I repeat, the prioritization of what we spend our money on, whether for state or local government, is very important. Conducting elections is what you work towards. If we settle and ensure that local government elections must be conducted at this time of the year, within 3 years across the country, and every state must key into that, and if they don't, this and that will happen. When people are elected at their local level, they will take care of the peculiarities of their local areas. But come to think of it, people are even clamoring that you remove this toga of 774 local governments from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Just as he said, creations have been made, but if we go back to all that, would it fly? Would it push through? We are talking of things that can help us make the best of what we have and build on it to improve on the system. So my take is that we, as a people, whether as governors, should think of tomorrow. That is where the problem is. And then when somebody is brought in as a local government chairman, Honorable Kiana is here. You know, when you talk about it, it's like you because you're a local government chairman, you don't have the funds, you don't have the wherewithal here. Legislative council is under certain control. You just begin trouble. Are you helping your people or you're causing problems for your people? But when they are elected, they know that at least there is a legal protection. There is constitutional protection for 3 years. And it's not as easy to remove an elected chairman and councillors of a local government as it is with appointed caretaker committees and transition committees. So that is an area we must get right and then follow it from there.
All right, Dr. Chris Akomas and gentlemen, we are going to go on a short break now. When we return from the break, we'll continue with the conversation. But just to note, that I think Lagos State has a provision of 4 years for local government councillors and chairmen. That's Lagos, probably one of the exceptions that we have in the country. It's Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. We're going to break now. Watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA's network service, and we are live from our Abuja headquarters studios. All our guests are still with us here in the studios, as well as from our Kaduna Network Center. I want to bring in Honorable Kiana just before we also get Afam Osigwe to respond to some of the issues on the table. I keep hearing this from you guests that, at least some of them who've spoken on it, that there are concerns as to the peculiarities of various communities which are not taken care of. Can we try to, again, seek to contextualize this on the basis of the provisions of the Constitution? I don't want to get into the arena, but clearly the Constitution doesn't stipulate the structure and tenure of local governments, but it empowers the state houses of assembly to make those provisions, and the State House of Assembly ordinarily is required to take into account the peculiarities of that particular environment. That's one leg of it. Now, the Constitution and the fourth schedule also stipulates what is referred to as minimum standards. That's to say, minimum mandates, functions of local governments. And those functions are not exclusive. That is to say, a state government, that's through a State House of Assembly, may enlarge the functions of local governments. But why is it that we haven't taken advantage of all of this to ramp up local government administration and then to take advantage of the key provision of Section 7 guaranteeing democratically elected governments?
I don't know, Mr. Kinsley. I want us to continue to introspect when we have opportunities like this to discuss issues that affect, if it doesn't affect you now, as we're discussing, it's affecting your sister or your cousin or your father somewhere in some part of this country. The focus of this discussion is on why the state governors have been unable to conduct elections across the country. Even where you have the best of situations and elections are conducted, the moral burden rests on all of us to say for fact that today, because of the loose nature of the provisions of conducting local government elections across the country, if Party A is in government and in governance in any particular state, be rest assured that once local government elections are conducted, it is that party that wins all elections. 110%. So, but where the same state is subjected to national elections, where the governor could win, he may lose Senate seats, he may lose House of Rep and House of Assembly seats, or local government system. It happens in FCTA here. So we're not discussing any particular state per se. We're discussing the moral burden that we have continued to avoid in the discharge of our responsibilities, and the era is now for us to introspect. Trump has gone with his era. Biden is introducing to us, reawakening all of us to this new focus. And I think General Buhari has the opportunity to be in. He has the National Assembly and he has the control of all the states, almost all the states, majority of the states in this country, to effect amendment into the Constitution in a manner that it cannot be manipulated or misinterpreted by any state government or state house of assembly. We need a tenured, stable local government system for this country to move forward. It is not true that Section 7 does not take care of the peculiarities of the individual needs of any particular state. That is why they said the houses of assembly can, of course, make laws that may be peculiar to their needs of the state. Into that, I was a local government chairman. I made bylaws when I was a local government chairman and established days, market days in my community as a bylaw. And when people resisted, we enforced it. And today, if you go to Kiana local government, there are established market days in all the district heads. It was a bylaw of the local government. That was a peculiar thing to me. Before then, it was 4-day marketing day. When we came in, it didn't suit our need. And so we sat down and passed a law. In market in Kianatown will be on Saturday. In this village, it will be on Friday. In fact, there are 2 villages that we synchronized their day of marketing. And it's a law today in Kiana local government. So there is enough law in the Constitution that goodwill can command it to stabilize governance at the local government system. Number 2, the idea that NISEC can function in this country is a daydream because of the peculiarity. I keep bringing this up of how our federalism has emerged, we need the intervention of ourselves from INEC to conduct a tenured election to every local government system in this country. That's what we have first. If we stabilize that, we can discuss any other thing. You will be amazed that if the local government systems are stable, nobody will be discussing restructuring in this country. Nobody will be discussing federalism in the context of regionalism as we discuss it today, because it would have solved the problems that elitist group of people have continued to propagate in this country. So, with respect also, crisis of local government system in this country, my senior friend and brother, former first governor of Kaduna State, McCarthy, there was the first person who removed a democratically elected local government in Kaduna State. We're not discussing him. Thereafter, he amended himself and went on. If Lufai is doing well today, kudos to him. What do you discuss? Now we just got information that Lagos has also passed a law for 4-year tenured local government elections in Lagos State. But the question we ask yourself is, as long as NISEC, established by Lagos State, is conducting that local government elections in that state, the state in government will continue to win every election in that state. So we have a national problem that all of us must, purposefully set out to address. And the government in place today has the opportunity to do that. Every governor should know that after a maximum of 8 years, he will be by the side begging the question on how elections in the front of his house will be conducted. He will not have an essay, even as a former governor. It's happening right now. That is because the structure has been made loose to become an instrument in the hand of serving governors at any particular time. If I have my way, the tier of government or the level of government today that's supposed to be removed, that has become a problem to this country, is the state level. The American system functions best. We have seen today that during the election, the president of America was engaging the electoral system that was managed at the macro level. And there was nothing he could do about it because the law secured him. So why are we not copying what is federal and nice and functional about America, except for the global name? Federalism means independence of state. What's independent about Nasarawa State? Or about Kogi State? Or about Lagos State? Or Borno State? When we are coming cap in hand every day to come and collect money from the center here. So if we can consciously come and be harmonious, it's a shame, like my colleague said, that when Mr. President even made an attempt to put in place this intelligence unit for financial intelligence to monitor it, harbor, every governor in unionism came and fought against that. What are you fighting against? And then we keep talking about how a governor is performing. That's not the issue. The issue is that in the general summation, we have a problem where we need to address it. The National Assembly is equipped with enough information, there is enough discussion, there is enough authority and opportunity for us to seize and be able to get over this matter. Otherwise, we'll be coming back to this point.
All right, sir. Let's pursue that and bring in Maziafam Osigwe's son once more. You've actually listened to other guests, especially our guests in Kaduna. They raised a number of issues as well. One of which, pointed to the fact that we need to, local government area has to be structured according to the needs of or peculiarities of a particular entity. Right. We also mentioned the issue of misinterpretation of the Constitution with respect to how the government is governed and how elections are also held in council areas. We also raised the issue of tenureship. How long should a tenure last for a council area and all of that. They put all of that together and try to sum it up. Perhaps can also make reference to the issue you raised that was actually that didn't go down well, with all of our guests in Kaduna.
Well, I'm glad the point has been made earlier that we're not discussing Kaduna State. But it would be a misconception for anybody to suggest that the Constitution, that when somebody talked about approbating and reprobating, that the Constitution seeks to put in place a uniform system of local government. The Constitution only guarantees a democratically elected local government system. And we are talking about the absence of democracy and transparency. And it would be a wrong conclusion for anybody to suggest that the constitution did not guarantee democracy at the local government. It did. This discussion, like Dr. Comas, His Excellency, has stated, is about the absence of democracy at the local government and the attendant effects of the failure to conduct election. It's not about who is doing well or not doing well. And about the peculiarities, this Section 7 has taken care of it by giving local government powers to determine the structure and administration. So if you think that a 2-year local government system works for you, fine and good. If you think that you recruited the chairman to mayor, fine and good. But whichever mode structure you adopt through your State House of Assembly, for goodness sake, ensure that the elections take place and are allowed to operate democratically. Do not, in making such a law, pretend to give the state governor power to dissolve such councils and take over his administration. That is the crux of our discussion. I don't care about whether a state A is doing well or not doing well. I care about the fact that state governors do not allow local governments to function democratically. That's why if it is another discussion about discussing a state, I would beg to be excused. I didn't come here to discuss any state, and I've not mentioned any state. But I think it should worry all of us that, as I'm told, over 14 trillion naira has gone to the local government tier of government between 2008 and 2018. I'm told that that's a figure reviewed by the Accountant General's office. And when you look at the various local government council areas in Nigeria, you will not believe that a fraction of that money has gone into those areas. Because infrastructure, everything is down, decrepit. Things are not being done. 14 trillion. I don't know how many $1 million that translates to. That's what we are talking about. And when you talk about financial autonomy and somebody suggests his approbation and reprobation, if the constitution has given room for them to get a part of the federation account, and you have to put it into an account to which the local government councils are not signatory to, which depends on the whims and caprices of the governor of the state to determine whether this money gets to them. Where's the autonomy? And that's what, and so in between getting to this joint account and to them, the money disappears. They don't get the money. And let's not pretend it doesn't happen. And I'm not pointing at any person. And sometimes the ministries of local government and chieftaincy affairs are complicit in this matter because they supervise the local governments. And I'm not particularizing. If we don't call a spade, this saw will become cancerous if it's not already a malignant. Cancerous and malignant. It's getting worse. A governor, he does not like your face, he dissolves your council and appoints caretaker. And the fact that whenever elections are conducted, the party in power wins 100% should worry all of us. It also means that that system is not democratic. And when you hear that another party won, look closely. Either he did not get his candidate in his own party and he asked somebody to run in another party. That's what happens. Let's not pretend. And this is a governor or whatever that cannot win the entire state in a federal election, an INEC conducted election. But when his so-called State Independent Electoral Commission, he gets it 100%. Everybody so loves the governor that they must return all his men and will pretend it is nothing. I'm sorry, I will not agree with the professor. We have a problem. If his report is that Kaduna State is a stellar example, thank God we are getting it right somewhere. But I didn't come to talk about Kaduna. We are talking about a systemic problem that is making a mess of our democracy. And contrary to provisions of the Constitution that guarantees democracy, he used the word elected, and there are Supreme Court decisions to that effect. And we still violate them, and we took an oath to respect the Constitution, to abide by laws made for the good governance of our states. That's why we are here. And if the 36 governors could protest about how money is meant for local government should be withdrawn, how structures put in place to ensure that these monies are not just frittered away, what is their worry? It is not state government money, local government money. They say this is how you withdraw it to ensure proper application of these funds. And they were up in arms. And that regulation is not being implemented. If you don't smell it right, I do. There's a particular reason why they were up in arms.
Is it a small rat or a big rat?
You don't want to know the size. If they did not have a financial interest in how that money is spent, they wouldn't care, because when I learned a lot of banking and insurance, they told me that he who has nothing at sea has nothing to fear the storm. So if I have nothing on the sea and there's a storm, I'll sleep soundly. Oh, well, what's my business? They're crying because that regulation will adversely affect them. And that's why I say it's avarice. And I have not heard any argument, compelling argument for me to change my view. And I'm unapologetic about expressing that view. And I do not intend to change it.
Learned Senior Advocate Afam Osigwe, thank you very much for your views. Let's return to our Kaduna Network Center. Professor Kabiru Mato, well, you know, we get pressed for time always, but you are used to our program. Let's try, excuse me, let's try and deal with some. I wanted to elongate the conversation by bringing an aspect that has been raised as to whether it's the local government is a tier or shouldn't be a tier. I just want to throw this in first, but I'll come to a more substantive aspect of my question that I would like you to interrogate. Now, let us assume local governments are removed as a tier of government, so we now have federal and state governments as the federating units. The federating units, that's to say at the state level, we still have units of administration, political administration. How do you determine those units of administration? Will it be whimsical for each of the state governors to just say create, you know, instead of local governments, we call them by whatever name? And even if they're going to be called by whatever name, there will still be a law that governs their operation. And if you deviate from the laws governing those operations, there obviously will be sanctions, whether it is provided for in the Constitution or otherwise. That's one leg. But the substantive point I want to come to is as follows. Now, I mean, the argument has been made, and it is obvious that in a great majority of cases, we are not having obedience to the provisions of the Constitution dealing with democratically elected local governments. The Attorney General of the Federation has also made this point. He has issued his advisory to the state governments that do not have democratically elected local government. We're not concerned at this point as to whether or not the CX allowing underage voters to cast their ballots and then the ruling party gets all the votes. Just to have democratically elected governments. What sanctions might be effective? We saw what happened during the administration of Obasanjo, when Lagos State went ahead to create the LCDAs, what they call the local council development areas, and Obasanjo said, well, those ones were outside the 20 recognized by the Constitution, therefore, I will not give you your funds. They went to court, obviously, but in this case, we're having local governments that are not democratically elected, we're having caretakers, we're having appointees, and so on and so forth, and they still have their drawings from the federation account. What can be done in that regard, and what else can be done to, most respectfully, I would say, recalcitrant state governments that continue to breach the provisions of the Constitution? Prof.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. You see, and that is, in my view, the mischief that this, particular issue desires to cure. The Constitution mentions local government by name, and therefore recognizes them as such as one of the variables in the distribution of national revenue. That's clear. If they don't exist there, they are not part of it, so the contention will not be there. You can have 100, municipalities. You sort out ways and means of funding these municipalities or local government councils or whatever. And if you remember the Lagos case, the Constitution gives you one thing with the right hand and takes it with another hand, with the left hand. That is precisely the crisis. But you see, the fact of the matter is that I think the National Assembly should proceed to amend that section of the Constitution if we are too serious about having the local government council as a third tier of government and having the leadership of this level democratically elected. It has to be so expressly provided by the Constitution. And, that's one way of getting it. But my humble view, my personal view about the local government system in Nigeria is that it should be the prerogative of every of the federating units to decide and determine character, nature, and mix of its local content. I may want to roll our local administration in Kaduna State through, for instance, the traditional institution system. This did work in substantial portion of northern Nigeria in colonial period and the First Republic. Today, there were no ungoverned spaces, but today, tremendous ungoverned spaces. If there is no problem in Anambra State because of, space, if there is no problem probably in some other states because of, the geography and topography, in substantial portion of this country where there is massive land, there is a lot of problem there. And I beg to disagree with the fact that it is not right for us to come on national television discussing a national issue, but giving specific examples why these things work. Man Jibrin Kana, you spoke to us about your local government buckets that you instituted when you're local government chairman. This is a national problem. But how did it become a national problem? It became a national problem because of specific problems that are accumulated within the Nigerian federal system. I'm saying it can work. It does happen in several other states, not just in Kaduna. And somebody is sitting in Abuja and telling me that I should not bring it up here. I'm not in a vacuum. We must, what is peer review after all? This is what peer review is all about. If it doesn't work in Nasarawa State, it's working probably in Jigawa State. And what's wrong with somebody from Jigawa State saying, come and copy from us? I tell you that in the last 5 years that I have served in Kaduna State government, many states came to Kaduna to learn with a lot of humility about so many things that we have done to get so many things going right. What's wrong with that? That's peer review. We are discussing about local government system and its failure to operate in Nigeria. And let me tell you that the first local government elections we had in this state, it was not the APC that won everything. About 20 to 30% of the local government councils went to the opposition party. The governor did not intervene in any manner. And you can go and ask, you can go and check, please conduct some research. Our problem, the problem with democracy in Nigeria, I will tell you with all sense of humility, stems from the way in which we try to define political issues in legalistic terms. We must begin to change that. Politics and governance are two different things from legal exigencies and legal exercises. And if we continue to rely on these lawyers, they will continue to face a series of crises. Remain in the courts, please, interpret the law.
Professor Matu, you are not alone in this, because I'm one of those persons that feel that lawyers sometimes bring in confusion. You know, they will argue on a particular section of a constitution. 10 lawyers will be arguing on a particular line in the constitution. And that's okay, fine. If this constitution is written, why are lawyers arguing on the interpretation of it? So you're not alone. But I want to thank you, you know, for your comment. Actually, the issue of the structure of council areas, you know, I think is captured in the section 7 of the Constitution, so that it behoves on the state authority or the state House of Assembly to determine the nature and structure of council areas, you know, and its peculiarities. So that one is very clear, right? So thank you once again. Now we have some comments there by Nigerians who have decided to be part of this program this morning. Let's hear from them and see how they are reacting to this very robust and interesting conversation this morning on the issue of local government elections in Nigeria. Kingsley and I will just read out those comments by our viewers who have just sent in their tweets. Kingsley, I'd like to begin.
All right. Festus Akimbo, election accountability in local governments is weak. If we want local governments to play a key role, the media must give local government elections more coverage and expose the large-scale corruption associated with the elections. The situation where incumbent party wins all the local government seats is questionable.
Derek Solomon says the good governance based on transparency and accountability has eluded local council areas in Nigeria due to the absence of a truly representative system of government. Local communities have been denied the right to democratically choose their representatives. Why? This must stop now.
Mike Ayankwa, state independent electoral commissions should be scrapped immediately, and their roles in conducting local government elections taken over by INEC.
All right, Law Alpha C. Until INEC takes over the conduct of council areas election in Nigeria, then the councils will remain stooges for governors.
Chris Simeon, some states have not conducted local government elections for almost a decade now. It's only the state governors that normally do the selection by appointing heads of councils and councillors. This kind of situation breeds incompetence and corruption.
Yusuf Mango, local government election in Nigeria is just a talk, very cheap. Selection of governors, boys, can't be an election.
All right. Well, there are still, of course, opportunities for us to return to this subject matter. On that note, we'd like to appreciate all our guests this morning. It's been occasionally heated, but of course, we have all enjoyed it. From our Kaduna Network Center, we're joined by Professor Kabiru Mato. At one point, he was Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs in Kaduna. He's also a professor of political science. Now, also from Kaduna, we were joined by a current member of the Kaduna State House of Assembly and a member of the Committee on Local Governments, Honorable Suleiman Ibrahim Dabo. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for being with us. Here in the Abuja studios, our deep thanks to Honorable Jibril Sabo Kiana, former chairman of Kiana Local Government Area in Nasarawa State. Also here, Mazi Afam Osigwe, the senior advocate of Nigeria and former Secretary General, Nigerian Bar Association. And last but not the least, former Deputy Governor of Abia State, Dr. Chris Akumas. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. So that's it for us on the program. We appreciate your being with us. We are back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian Umayo. Thank you for watching.